What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Grab the Remote. My name is Matt, and joining me today for the first time in a little while is Cody Felger. Cody, how you doing, man?
Man, I'm good. Sorry, I know it's been a while. Feels like there's a lot going on. I'm just got through a really busy season at work. I'm actually, going to be changing jobs here soon, moving a little bit. So there's been a lot going on, but yeah, man, really, really stoked, really excited to talk about this series today. One of my favorite ones ever. So really looking forward to it.
Definitely. This is it's got to be one of the classics when you talk about horror franchises, and honestly, I think it's probably when you compare all the movies to other franchises, this has to be one of the best because you got like Friday the 13th, where you have a bad movie or two. Same thing with Nightmare on Elm Street, but with Scream, I think the worst you can say about any of these movies is it's okay. I don't think there's been a bad movie in this franchise at all. And especially for the horror genre, that's really tough to do. So, I mean, you got to give Wes Craven and everybody that worked on these movies a lot of credit.
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, this is one of those rare series where, like you said, eventually, now they're going into six movies, and eventually you're like, certainly you're going to run into a stinker one of these times, but
Yeah.
they still have it, man. I mean, they still, like you said, at the worst, it's still an okay horror movie, the
Yeah.
worst ones. So, yeah, the crazy thing that they've been able to do what they've done with obviously the passing of Wes Craven, rest in peace.
Yeah.
They've still been able to have success with that and really have this reboot now with the second movie with these new characters and stuff. It's yeah, it's great, man. It's just one of my favorite series, like I said, and there's just so many things that are iconic about this series, like so many, and series that came out before I was born.
Yeah.
But I've just grown to love it, man.
Yeah. I think it came out right before I was born or right around the time. I can't, was it 94, 93 when the first one came out, or was it a little earlier?
Yeah, it was something like that. I can tell you right now. Oh, maybe.
Okay. So I
Sorry.
just looked it up. It's 1996 was the first one. So
1996. Okay, yeah. So it came out the year I was born, Matt.
yeah,
So I didn't get into this, and I didn't honestly watch these movies until gosh, a while. Honestly, I think it was till I was probably about in my early 20s when I started actually watching this
oh, okay,
for the first time. Yeah, I actually remember watching this. I was so this is something crazy. I was really sick. I was
yeah,
really sick. I had like influenza, and I was out for like
mhm,
the entire week from work. I was stuck at home, and I'd heard about this series for a long, long time. I'd watched Scary Movie, which is a huge parody of Scream,
yeah,
and I just watched it, instantly just fell in love with this world and just with these characters and stuff, and just completely just binged them all. And
yeah,
then obviously watched the latest one that came out, I believe 2022. So
yep,
yeah, I just love this series, man. And it's just so iconic. And the crazy thing is, man, this series has been going on as long as I've been alive. I'm going to turn 27 this year. Like this has been nearly a
dang,
30-year series, and it's still alive and well. It's crazy.
yeah. I mean, I started watching them when I was 9 or 10. I was a year old when the first one came out. That was the weird thing about my parents was violence and stuff. It was like, depending on how bad it gets, we're okay with it. But once we get to the nudity part, nope, can't watch that until you're 18 years old. But
Right.
no, I watched these obviously. I think the first one I watched in 2005, 2004, and obviously I watched the second and third one pretty quick after. But I definitely enjoyed these. It's crazy that they're just able to be consistent with the quality, never really make a bad movie. And, at the time of this upload, the sixth one is out. We haven't seen it yet, but everybody's saying six is really good too. So
Mm.
it's really nice to hear that it's still, even with this new one coming out, where it seems like they changed it a little bit because they go to New York in the new one, but it's still a good movie. It's not even just poking fun at the horror genre anymore. Like the fifth one poked fun at Star Wars, and not just the movies, but some fans too. So, um, they're finding new little ways to, keep it fresh, and it's really, really exciting. So, yeah, so we figured today we would get into the movies, just kind of discuss the movies, maybe some of the things that stuck out to us, just our overall thoughts on all the movies. And I figured start with the first one. Of course, the classic movie that came out in '96. What were your thoughts on that one? And then just
Oh
some of the
yeah.
things that maybe stuck out to you.
Oh man, I mean, what doesn't stick out right from the get
Yeah,
go? With Drew Barrymore, in
yeah,
the kitchen, and the classic line that everybody knows.
yes,
What's your favorite scary movie? And then, oh, it just that opening scene just sets the tone, man, for the
yeah,
whole series, and sets the tone for that movie. And just yeah, and just you fall in love with the characters of Woodsboro and just everything there. From obviously Sydney, who is the main person. You start setting up that relationship with Gail and Dewey. And then you just have so many other characters, fun characters that come along the way.
yeah,
So it's just, I love that movie just because it sets up so many things, and it's just so ahead of its time,
yeah,
and I'm a big horror fan. So like, this was kind of the time where, we talked about like, Friday the 13th and the slasher kind of genre that happened around that time, like in the 80s and stuff. And this was kind of like obviously it is a slasher series in a lot of ways, but it was poking fun of a lot of those
yeah,
tropes and a lot of those things, and it was very meta in that way, and it was just very like new and very unconventional, I guess. It was really breaking the mold for a lot of things. And then you started to see some of those movies that started to get a little bit more self-aware and kind of
mhm,
based how they, approached the horror genre based off of what Scream did. So it was very revolutionary for the time. And, you know, I just love that, that first movie and just what it set up and just the characters that we all grew to know and love. And we still know
yeah,
a few of those characters in this next movie coming up. And just Sydney and obviously her tragedy there with her mother and just all that stuff there, all that trauma and stuff, and how she powers through it, man. It's
yeah.
just it's incredible. I just absolutely adore that movie.
Yeah, it's definitely a classic, and like you said, the fact that it pokes fun at all these other movies, it's a different, it was a different type of horror film for that time. There wasn't really a whole lot that was like this movie. And of course, that opening scene, super classic. One of the more iconic scenes, maybe in the horror film genre in general, with Drew Barrymore. It's just, the way it starts. If you're watching it for the first time, that's something you don't expect it, like as far as how it starts. And, of course, the classic line, "What's your favorite scary movie?" And I mean, everybody knows it. Even if you haven't seen the movie, you know that line. And of course, Ghostface is an iconic character. A lot of people
Mhm.
dress up as him on Halloween. And again, if you haven't seen the movies, you probably dressed up as Ghostface. I dressed up for Halloween as Ghostface when I was like five, 5 or 6. And at that time, I didn't watch the movies. So,
Yep.
just an iconic character. And it's just another reason why Wes Craven is one of the best to do it.
Yep.
He truly was one of the best to ever do it. And then of course Matthew Lillard as Stu is great. Could we see him in 6? I don't know. I have no idea. I'm
Yeah.
definitely curious to see if that happens. But you have him and obviously Billy Loomis, iconic character as well, and Nev Campbell as well.
Mm.
Just great in those movies, and she really made Sydney a pretty iconic character too in that genre. And it's gonna be weird to see this new Scream movie without her because when you think of Scream, there's two things you think of. You think of Ghostface and you think of Sydney. So it's gonna be pretty crazy. But yeah, obviously a classic. Everybody knows about this movie. I mean, I think what Scary Movie came out like late '90s, I think '99 or something like that. And just seeing that poke fun at a movie that poked fun at other things is pretty cool too. But yeah, so now let's move on to the second movie, Scream 2. And for me, I really do enjoy this movie as well. I like that it poked fun at itself a little bit too, where you obviously have Stab, that movie there, that was fun as well. But she's in college in this movie. Seeing Timothy Oliphant was really cool too. I like him. You know, I forgot he was in that movie until I saw Justified, and then I went back and watched the movies later. I was like, "Oh, he's in that movie. Okay." But yeah, he's a great actor, so obviously that was fun. And then of course having Billy Loomis's mom in the movie too, and having her be involved as one of the killers, even though she posed as like one of the news reporters or news anchors in that movie too. That was a really cool twist that they did in the movie. But for you, Cody, I think you shared your thoughts on it a little bit ago, but just go into a little more detail about the movie, just why you like it, and what some of the things that stick out to you in that movie are.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of, and this is where I think Ghostface just becomes that much more scary is the fact
Yeah.
that like he's not just one character. Like, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like he can be anybody.
Yeah.
And that's the scary thing. And with having the two killers, in the first movie, you're like, are they gonna do it again? Like, are they gonna do one, just one killer? Who are they
Yeah.
gonna do? Stuff like that. And the fact that like he can be anybody. He's not just Freddy. He's not just Jason. Like he is
Yeah.
anybody. That alone it makes Ghostface even more terrifying. And it just kind of shows, man, in certain ways that like, how kind of screwed up this culture can be sometimes. Like this
Yeah.
tragedy happens with all these people that get killed and they go and make a movie series out of it.
Yeah.
It's just like, now
True.
hopefully nobody would actually do that, but like that's just like, man, that's just crazy to me that like that was a
Yeah.
thing. But and just, how crazy some people can be, and how
Mhm.
people can take fandom to an extreme level. But also, I thought it was very interesting with Sydney because she's just been through so much, right? With
Yeah.
between her mother and all that thing, and then obviously with the boyfriend and stuff. But then in this movie, you're right, she's in college and she has a new boyfriend, and she has some trauma and some wounds from the past that she doesn't know if she can trust him.
Mhm.
She's not sure what can happen there, and she eventually finds out that she can, but it's just crazy, man. It's just a great movie that continues to build on characters. You see the dynamics now between obviously Gale and Dewey a little bit more fleshed out in this movie. And it kind of seems like that's one thing that's so interesting is to watch like Gale's development over the course of the movies from
Yeah.
where she starts at the beginning to like now she's kind of in that phase where you don't really like Gale right now. I know I
Yeah.
didn't in the second movie. I'm kind of just like,
Yeah.
what? You're just using these tragedies, man, to bolster yourself a
Yeah.
little bit. And so um, but yeah, I just really found it interesting that they started to make those movies based off of this tragedy. But just another fun thing with all these characters that we've started to know now, and just another mystery of figuring out. And obviously, the tale of revenge with Billy Loomis's mother coming into this and playing a factor into this movie. But I just think it's another strong you know part of this franchise that really I think cement continues to build off of the first one in the lore with that one, but add
Yeah.
some new elements to it that I kind of like, and the kind of the meta commentary a little bit about sequels. And it's
Right.
kind of funny with when Randy talks about the different rules of sequels and
Yeah.
stuff like that, and he's in that classroom and um just the things that they kind of set up in these movies. I've always been a fan of them, how they're kind of just like thinking ahead out of the box a little bit. And they continue to
Yeah.
do that, to this day. So
Yeah. And I mean, the second one too had a pretty iconic opening, not just with Stab, but you had, the killings in those
mhm.
movies too, where you had the guy get killed in the bathroom. Then you had Jada Pinkett Smith, Will Smith's wife. She also gets killed, I believe, too, in that opening scene. So it's like, they found another way to make the second movie have a pretty iconic, not as iconic as the opening scene from the first movie. That's gonna be tough to beat, but it's still pretty iconic, and it's pretty cool how they do it. It's pretty clever. But now let's move on to the third movie, Scream 3. Um, this to me is probably my least favorite. I'll be completely honest right now. We're gonna rank the movies later, but I'll kind of give you guys a little heads up. This is probably towards the bottom, but it's an okay film. It's still a pretty solid movie. Oh, bless you, Cody. But
Thank you.
No, so you have Sydney, she's an author in this one, I believe.
Hmm.
She has her book, and there's a movie and another third movie being made while the third movie is happening, which is pretty cool too. And yeah, so Cody, I'll go to you. I'll let you talk about this one first. What were your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it. Like, this is my least favorite, just because there's a lot more unbelievability, if you will, in
Yeah,
this movie. I mean, I think the most obvious thing is the whole voice changing device that allows this person to be basically anybody they want to be, and you just that raises a lot of questions. Like, how do
yeah,
they get all these people's voices? How are they able to do this? Like, it was a very much a movie device, something that doesn't really get a
yeah.
lot of explanation, but it's just kind of there to drive the plot and
Mhm.
that's just something that I just kind of think is a little bit ridiculous in certain ways. But yeah, and then obviously, talk about with the third movie kind of being right when this movie is also happening. And I don't know. For me, with the long lost stepbrother, that really kind of felt forced. Like the first
Yeah.
two, I completely understood the
Mhm.
motivations for the first two. But then it's just kind of like, we'll just throw in a long lost brother. Why not? It
Yeah.
kind of just felt like very rushed and the motivation didn't really seem as strong or as natural, I guess, as maybe the first two motivations did.
Yeah, like again, it's not a bad movie. I think it's a fine movie. The whole long lost stepbrother thing, like you said, was a little interesting that they went that way. It was kind of cool that he was the director and his killings were going to be inspired based on what was going to happen in the movie, like it was going to go in that order just like, it would happen in a movie. That was really the one thing I was like, okay, that's kind of cool, but it's not great. Obviously, Liev Schreiber, I believe this is the one where he dies because he
Yeah.
was in the other two movies. And,
Yep.
that's another guy that when I saw him in there, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I
I totally
believe he
forgot he was in it.
dies in this one, right at the beginning.
Yeah, I thought it was in the very beginning.
Yeah.
I don't think she wrote the book in this one. I think it's the fourth one, actually, where she has a book coming out. I think,
Yeah.
isn't she like a,
I want to
you
say
know,
she like is helping people like
like a
she has like a
helpline or
crisis
whatever?
helpline or something that she's
Yeah.
helping people and she's just like in her home all the time.
Yeah, and that's, the killer calls her, and that's when he dies in the movie.
Yeah.
So, yeah, she doesn't write the book in this one. That just kinda popped in my head. It was like, "Oh, wait, no, that's the next movie," just
Yeah,
a
I
second
know.
ago, but,
They all kind of blend together, don't they?
yeah, they do, but, no, this is still a decent movie. I mean, I would still recommend it if you're gonna watch these movies. Still check this one out. You can have some fun with this movie still. I mean, you can have fun with all these movies, but yeah, like you said, this is the one that's a little more unbelievable with some of the things that happens in this movie. But yeah, still a solid little film. But then there was a break between the Scream movies, and we get to 2011, and Scream 4 comes out. Right back to the franchise, and yeah, I'll go to you again. What were your thoughts on Scream 4 and just I guess the whole revitalization, I guess, of the Scream movies by that point?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, I thought it was interesting. First off, with Gail and Dewey. Now they were engaged, got engaged in the last movie.
Yeah,
Now they are, they're married. They're in Woodsboro, and it's kind of like interesting because, like you talked about, Gail's kind of in a funk a little bit.
yeah,
Sydney's writing a book, like we talked about kind of her own story. So it was interesting because, like, I think the good thing about the third one is that Sydney, it seems like she's finally starting to, at the end of it, start to move on from her past a little bit more. Like
mhm,
where some of them, she was just kind of bottling it all up. She was kind of just keeping it all to herself, kind of thinking nobody will understand me. But in this one, we see a little bit of a different Sydney. She's had some years to think about it, to process it, and she's been able to, I think, kind of work through some of her demons a little bit and to talk through those things and write about those and share her experiences with others, which is kind of a cool character arc, to see that from her, that she's
yeah,
able to do that. And, obviously it's, there's a lot of trauma there, but it's cool to see her in this movie. She's, it's clear that she has worked through a lot.
Mhm.
and she's in a different spot than she was at the end of Scream 3. So I think that's great just to see her development and her kind of, off screen, obviously, but to see where she's at now, I think is very interesting. And then it's kind of interesting to me also, talking about, um, looking at Emma Roberts, Emma
Yeah.
Roberts, and the kind of that next generation, if you will, of
Mhm.
people that are, and when Sydney's eyes, a girl just like her, right? A girl that's experiencing this trauma and
Yeah.
like all this stuff is happening to her, and she sees herself in a lot of ways
Mhm.
to Emma Roberts. But and we'll get into more of this, but it's definitely different. But I think it's nice that they took a little bit of a break,
Yeah.
and you get to see these characters fleshed out a little bit more. It's like, okay, they, a lot of these things they, kind of came to conclusions. So what's the next step here in life?
Right. And, like you said, it's good that they took a little break because I feel like if they would have went and did Scream 4 a couple years later, it would have been a different story, more than likely with some of the characters. But at that point, it probably would have lost some steam and it would have went downhill, especially with the third one not being as good as the first two. It's good that they took a break, but um, no, I mean, it was kind of cool going back watching those movies and you see like Alison Brie and Emma Roberts as well, and with Emma Roberts being the killer and also being, was it her niece or cousin? I think it was her niece, Sydney's niece,
Yeah, I think. Well, I think
or was it a
it's
cousin?
her cousin. Yeah, yeah.
Cousin, okay.
Yep, she's
Um,
her cousin, and I think from what I understand is like she is just really she struggles with the pressure of kind of being related to Sydney, because Sydney's obviously like
right.
super well known because of this stuff. I just think it's very interesting how, it's kind of more the modern age. I believe it was like in the 2010s around that time when this movie
Yeah.
came out. So like social media, that was something that was not present at all in the last three movies. And I just think that's
Yeah.
a very interesting new aspect of like there's so many people that want to be famous and they'll do whatever it takes to get it. And
Mhm.
she's one of those people, like she doesn't care what it
Yeah.
takes. She'll kill people that she knows and
Yeah.
loves because she wants to be famous. I just think it's a very interesting commentary and something that we just didn't see or wasn't even probably a thought back in the first three movies.
Yeah, and, like she said in the movie, she wants fans. Like, she wants
Mhm.
to create her own image, I guess, in a way. She wants to, like, be her own thing, and she wants to be remembered as, you know, the cousin of Sydney, and be the one to actually get Sydney. So, um, yeah, I mean, this one I thought it definitely was a step up from the third movie. Not quite as good as the first two, but um, it was, like I said, it was a good thing they definitely took the break they did and went back, what, 10, 11 years, because I think the third one came out in 2000, so they took about a decade off and then went back to it. So yeah, pretty solid film. And now we move into Scream 5 that came out
Mhm.
in 2022. Um, as they say in the movie, it's like a requel in a sense. It's not a
Mhm.
reboot, it's not a sequel in a way. It's its own requel where it's taking characters from the original movies and bringing in new characters and telling a different story. For me personally, um, this was the one that I saw and I was like, "Okay, this this is rivaling some of the best in the Scream movies." Really, really enjoyed this movie. A lot of fun with this movie as well. Some twists and turns, like, yeah, is it, like, predictable at times? Sure, it is, but, I mean, it didn't bother me that much. I like that they poked fun at not just the horror genre, but also other franchises like Star Wars, where, you had essentially the ghost faced in this movie. They were like toxic Star Wars fans that were like, "No, these are horrible movies. It needs to be like the original movies. Those are the best. The original creators should be the ones in charge," and all this stuff. And it reminded me a lot of some of the Star Wars fans you see on YouTube, like Geeks Gamers, and some of the other people as well. That was a weird cough. But they poked fun at stuff like that, and um, the killings in this movie I thought were pretty cool too, and like I said, some surprises in this movie as well. So I'll go to you. What were your thoughts on this movie?
Yeah, you're right. I think this is a strong return to form for Scream. You talked about obviously without Wes Craven. I still felt like it had a Wes Craven vibe. Like I really felt
Oh
like
yeah,
they did not miss a beat when
no,
it came to the feel for Woodsboro, the feel for this universe, and
yeah,
I really did feel like they nailed it. And that's hard, man, when because we've seen it with different franchises that try to have these new characters but bring back the old characters.
yeah,
Oftentimes it really sucks. Like honestly,
yeah.
I
It doesn't
think of
work out
like
sometimes.
Jurassic Park is one, or Jurassic World. I'm
Yeah,
sorry. Like that one just comes to mind. Heck, even
yeah,
like Star Wars. I don't know your opinion on some of them. Like I like The Force Awakens, but some of the other ones, like not great. But like there's a lot of
yeah,
franchises that I feel like are trying to do that. Like Texas Chainsaw Massacre just tried to do that, and it did not work.
yeah,
And I feel like there's a lot of franchises that try to do this approach, but like often just are like, oh, look at these old characters that you're nostalgic for. Isn't this
yeah,
great? Doesn't that mean our movie's great? But like they miss the whole point of what makes a good movie and what made those movies great to begin with. And so
yeah,
for me, yeah, I really thought this was a strong return to form, adding these new characters, but it really felt like, hey, they belong in this universe. Like they belong with these other characters. And so I thought it was a nice blend of the characters that we all know and love, the
yeah,
nostalgic characters, but then these new characters as well that were
yeah,
adding in to this movie and to this universe. And so,
yeah.
yeah, I really, really enjoyed it.
Mhm,
It's just really interesting the whole idea of with the character of Billy Loomis's, daughter. We find out later,
mhm,
like that's just like like out of left field. Like what.
yeah,
And you do wonder, okay, like obviously Sydney still has trauma from that. Like, what's that gonna do to her, man? Like, what's that gonna do to
right.
her? There's just so much here that I just absolutely love, and I think they're just. And then they obviously bring back Billy Loomis as well, the ghost of Billy Loomis in this,
Yeah,
and he's kind of like haunting her throughout this movie as well. There's
mhm.
just so much here that I just absolutely love.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, I bet they're so happy that they cast Jenna Ortega to be in this movie,
Yes.
because when they cast her, she wasn't, like, that big of a name. Now she's, like, everywhere. Like, everyone loves Jenna Ortega, so they have to be so happy that they cast her in this movie, and this was the 5th movie was really the first movie that, I guess, started building that, big fan base that she has now, because obviously Wednesday, that just shot her up to a whole new level, and that is going to make this new movie Scream 6, just more money than what it probably would have made if she wasn't as big of an actress. Um but yeah, they have to be happy. And yeah, I thought it was really cool in this movie too. Or not really cool, I should say. I thought it was pretty neat that you had Huey from The Boys in this movie too. Because that's right around the time when The Boys was out too. So I believe The Boys came out before this movie came out, but still see him in the movie was cool. I like him. Um, and then they kind of play on the whole I guess trope, if you want to call it, with some of the newer movies, like with Star Wars and whatnot, to where some of the original characters die in the 5th movie. Um, you had it's not Huey, it's Dewey.
Doing.
Dewey, yeah,
Yep.
Dewey dies, in this movie, and that when I saw that sucked. But that's kind of what all the other movies like Star Wars came out, had Luke Skywalker die in the movie, had Han Solo die in the movie. Um, so, kind of poked fun at that. Like me personally, like you, I'm a fan of The Force Awakens. A lot of fun. Last Jedi, I do love. I know a lot of people don't like that movie. Like it's fine. I love the movie. I have a great time. Where I have it ranked in my Star Wars rankings. Oh, excuse you.
Sorry.
Um, it's no, you're good. Um, it's different than most people where I have The Last
Yep.
Jedi. But
Yep.
anyway, no, like I said, it's a lot of fun, the Scream movie. I like that they poked fun at like not just Star Wars, but like I believe didn't they mention aliens in the movie too, where it's like aliens and Star Wars. I mean, Jurassic World, like you said, was another one. Oh, excuse you. Jurassic Park was
I
another
don't know what's going
movie
on. Woo!
where they
Anyway,
where they kind of did the same thing too. But yeah, this movie was a lot of fun. The killings were fun. Seeing the original characters come back was pretty cool too. So, with that being said, before we go, let's go ahead and let's rank the movies. I'll start with you. We'll go from I guess 5 to 1. Obviously, we haven't seen Scream 6 at the time of this recording, so that's not going to be on our list, obviously. So I'll go
yeah.
to you first. We'll go from 5 all the way up to number 1.
Awesome. Okay. So I think at number 5, it's fairly obvious. Scream 3 sits there, which is crazy because it's not a bad movie. But
Yeah.
anyway, that's 5 for me. Um, Number 4, this is where it gets interesting. I think I'll actually go probably Scream 4 for that one. Still
Mhm.
a pretty decent movie. Nothing like spectacular. I thought it was a nice return to form, but wasn't one of I think my top ones. And then top 3. Okay. So I really liked the recent Scream, but
Yeah.
I think I just can't go against the originals. I just can't. So I'll have Scream 5 at number 3. Number 2, see, I could really interchange 2 and 1.
Mhm.
But I think I'll go 2 is Scream 2, and then 1, I got to go the original Scream. I can't go against it for what it did, for the impact it had, and
Yeah.
just what it continued to do and the characters it set up. Like, I can't go against that. So I got to go with Scream number 1 there for me
Right.
as the top one. What about you?
All right. So I'll agree with you at 5. I'm going to put Scream 3 at 5. Okay movie. It's not bad. I could obviously throw it on my TV, still have a fun time watching a movie. Uh, at 4, I'm also gonna go Scream 4. Definitely better than Scream 3, just not as good as the rest of the movies. Number 3, I'm actually gonna go Scream 2.
Okay.
I really enjoy Scream 2, had a lot of fun with it. Another pretty iconic opening scene with the stab stuff. So I'm gonna go with that at number 3. Number 2, I'm gonna go Scream 5. Very close to number 1, I think. Another really cool opening to the movie as well. It sets the tone for just the entire movie in general. Had some fun kills in the movie. I mean, you had one of the girl that is Ghostface in the movie. You had her get shot and she falls into the stove and just lights on fire in the movie too. And then she I don't think she's dead there either. She ends up coming back up and alive. That was a lot of fun though. Jenna Ortega's, really good in the movie. The entire new cast they bring in, I think, is a lot of fun. Melissa, her last name starts with a B. I can't remember right now, but she's also in the Heights, and she's got a new movie coming out later this year with Paul Mescal too, and she's been in some other stuff as well. But like, she's really good in these movies. Like you said, the twist of her being the daughter of Billy Loomis was pretty cool. Um, I didn't see that coming at all, but it's really cool, and it seems like the effects of that is going to carry over into this new Scream movie as well. So I'm going to go that number 2, and then number 1, the original Scream. I can't bump it down to number 2. It's a lot of fun, some iconic moments in that movie. Of course, the most iconic opening scene, definitely one of the most iconic of any horror film. You might make an argument that it's the most iconic opening scene. Obviously, the most iconic line is in that scene too. Um, obviously Nev Campbell became a star with that movie. Just a really good movie. Uh, Scream 5 is the only movie that comes really close to what the first Scream does for me, but I'm gonna go Scream 1 at number 1.
Mm-hmm.
So
Can't go wrong
there
there.
we have it. Yeah. You got to go number 1 with the first Scream, but I've seen some people put Scream 5 as number 1 too, which I mean, I
Wow.
wouldn't blame them. Because Scream 5 is a really good movie. So I wouldn't blame them, but you can't go wrong with the original. You can't.
Absolutely.
It's really tough to top the original. There's like a few movies I've been able to do so. Haven't really gotten it with this one, but yeah, I think that's gonna do it. Um, that's all I can think of anyway. We've been going for 35 minutes, which is pretty crazy. But hey, we had a lot of fun talking about Scream, and we're gonna have to do this more often. We gotta do more videos like this more often. Whether we talk about just one movie in general or if we, you know, what uh, there's got to be something coming out later. Oh, The Boogeyman comes out later this year. Stephen King's. So maybe we can do
Ooh,
some later this year. Talk
yeah.
about some of our favorite Stephen King movies or movies based off his novels. But yeah, we definitely got to do this. So before we sign off, I'll go to you, Cody. It's been a little bit since you've been on here. You're looking like Will Levis right now, which is okay. Um, what where can the people find you? Eh,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me on Twitter and on Instagram. Twitter at CPFelger55, and then Instagram the same as well. But yeah, dude, I'm be honest, I love horror movies. So anytime you want to talk about one, I'm totally down for that. You know, I say like for me, like I just have so many of these franchises that I love, and I'm a big Stephen King fan as well. But I also like bad horror movies too. Those are
Yes.
amazing.
Yes.
There's a couple movies that I feel like I've watched recently. I actually like have people over and we'll watch bad scary
Mm,
movies, but they're
yeah.
just so bad. It's just amazing. I just
Yeah.
love that genre in general. I just absolutely love it. So yeah, anytime you want to talk about it, man, I'm totally down.
Absolutely. I mean, you had Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey come out earlier this year, which
I couldn't bring
that
myself to watch that.
oh, don't watch it. It's not
What
like
I've
bad
heard.
fun. Like there's a couple fun little kills in it. It's really, really like
I
there's
figured it would
times
be.
there's times where they know what they're doing, like
Mhm.
they're leaning into it, but there's also times where it's very film student like. But hey, we
Oh,
got more coming out. We got a Bambi movie coming out. We got a Peter Pan scary movie coming out too. So they're making a lot of those. I mean, Bambi's going to be a killing machine
oh my
in
gosh.
their movie. And then he said he wants to eventually do. The director said he wants to eventually do a Winnie the Pooh versus Bambi movie, which
Oh
I'm telling you
no,
right now, I need that. So I
dude.
really hope that these movies make $1 million because that's really all they
It's
need to make.
becoming like the shark movies now, where they
Oh yeah,
all they have these really bad ones and they all face each other, and it's just like, oh
yeah.
boy.
Oh, it's so fun. But I mean, you have like that. Oh, Children of the Corn. It's gonna be on Shutter later
Yeah,
this month. That's
I
supposed to be
didn't.
really
Have
bad.
you seen the original?
I have but it was a long time ago. I watched it with my
Yeah.
grandma when I was like 4,
Oh
oddly
gosh, that was
enough.
probably traumatic.
I thought it was kind of funny, but
Yeah.
no, the new
uh,
one's coming out, and I
I
think that's gonna be another bad one. But that
I
might be
say
fun to
I have
watch.
not heard a good thing about it.
Yeah, it's gonna be like that Firestarter or whatever that came out with Zac
Oh
Efron
yeah,
last year. That
yeah,
was so bad.
yeah.
Um, but no, yeah, there's a lot. We're definitely have to get back and do another one like this. Maybe when Bambi versus Winnie the Pooh, we'll have to do a special like Winnie the
Perfect.
Pooh, Blood and Honey, because they're making a sequel to that too. So we'll have to talk about that. Neverland Nightmare is the Peter Pan one, and then Bambi, and then we're gonna have to do that.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
but
Yes.
there's a lot coming out later this year too. I mean, some would say Ant Man and the Wasp: Quantumania is a horror film.
Oh, I've
Um,
heard about that.
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. Modoc is just terrifying in the film to look at, but anyway, you can find me though here, obviously on the channel. I think we're gonna start doing reactions. Like if I do them, they're probably not gonna be up right away, just because I work third shift. I'll go home and I'll get up at like 2 to 4 o'clock, somewhere in that range. So we might start doing those later on. I finally got a good enough editing program where I feel like I can do that pretty quick and get them all uploaded fast. But you can obviously find me here. I'm on Inside the Horseshoe Podcast on YouTube. I got as of the upload, there is a mock draft up that went
Ooh,
up on Friday that I did. 5
okay.
round mock draft. A lot of fun. No trades in that one. But you can find me there. I'll have more content coming out, obviously, for the draft and free agency, as will Cody, I'm assuming, on Bring the Juice. So you guys are going to have some free
Yes.
agency stuff. So make sure you guys check that out. Check out Bring the Juice. Check out Inside the Horseshoe podcast. I'm on Twitter. I got 2 Twitter accounts. One for Inside the Horseshoe, and then we also have one for Grab the Remote. The Grab the Remote handle is grab underscore the underscore remote, and then Inside the Horseshoes is horseshoe underscore pod. So that's going to do it, guys. For Cody and myself, thank you very much for watching, and we will see you next time. Bye bye. All righty.